Welcome to Joe's Place, the Joe Giannotti Podcast. Today's guest is an independent epidemiologist and biostatistician. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, he has been researching the efficacy of flush niacin, NAC, other B vitamins, and a host of other supplements as a means of treating all facets of the illness. We will delve into this, as well as discuss the health benefits of these important vitamins and supplements for the human body. It is my honor to have as today's guest, Dmitry Kats. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a great day, and welcome to episode 7 of Joe's Place, the Joe Giannotti Podcast. I am your host, Joe Giannotti, and I am greatly honored to have as today's guest, Dmitry Kats. I'm going to bring him right in. Hello, hey, Dmitry. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Enjoying my day.
I'm so glad to have you on today because I want to discuss what you have seen, throughout the pandemic with niacin as well as NAC. For those that don't know, and I've shared this on one of my episodes already, I've taken a B complex supplement for the past 20 years of my life. And interestingly enough, when I was at this weight management center, when I started my complete lifestyle change in July of 2013, they were very surprised that my vitamin B count was very good. My vitamin D was horrendous, but my vitamin B count was actually very good, and I attribute it to the B complex that I was taking. But before we get into that, Dmitry, I want to ask you, I want to start with, how did you find niacin, NAC, and your protocol? How did you find it? During the pandemic, what part of the pandemic did you figure out that this worked pretty well in patients, not just during active COVID, but at all stages of COVID?
Right. So I was actually completing the last semester of my doctorate in epidemiology at UNC Chapel Hill. At the time, I was naive, thinking even this, this might be a bad pandemic and all that. Nonetheless, I was finishing up my dissertation, and my dissertation was focusing on essentially the main objective was to look at how impactful, to assess how much impact and kind of how to go about doing physical activity over, age from, once you get into midlife, around you're getting into the 50s and on, in terms of healthy aging as a construct, kind of preventing chronic disease, preventing neurodegeneration, keeping yourself as ideally happy, healthy, functioning as you were earlier in life forward. That's kind of what healthy aging at its core gets to. We've known now, and it's a reality now, say in the United Kingdom, that dementia is going to be the #1 killer. In the UK, it has been since 2017.
And Dmitry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Speaking of dementia, I've lost 5 of my great aunts and uncles, including my grandmother, to dementia. And
yeah, it's one of the worst things.
It's a horrible, horrible illness. And I remember seeing my great aunt, who passed away in October of 2019, and she had it for 5 years. And the last time I saw her, just to see them and not have, you could tell that they don't know who you are. That is, that's the most heartbreaking, that when they don't know who your own grandchildren or grandnieces or nephews or even children. It's just so tragic to see. And the number is growing, and it's growing at an exponential rate.
Yeah. And it's extreme. Like, so on that note too, the burden of care financially, and the societal burden for caregivers, families, it has been projected by like Alzheimer's Society, Alzheimer's Association, essentially like you're talking by 2040, it's going to be quadruple the rate it is now, an extra tens of millions, and then from there only going to exponentially grow. And that's in terms of the number of individuals who will be affected with, say, Alzheimer's dementia. And the burden of, so just the burden of care is something our civilization, with modern advancements in the health sciences, with the life extension on the average level in the population, especially developed nations, we haven't kind of reached to as a civilization to be living into these decades still to keep us alive, even extended from say chronic, say like heart diseases or cancers. Eventually, what will happen then if you don't die of those first, is that you'll eventually kind of just accumulate more and more energy. It's almost like getting struck by a lightning bolt, but into your late life, and then eventually it reaches a point where the cells in your body just can't contain. There's too much pressure for all the extra, literally electrons that you haven't exerted out your body, especially as you get more sedentary when you age. Where then it's like, it's essentially just snaps, and then it's like a chain reaction that eventually reaches in your blood-brain barrier, your whole nervous system back to your brain. It's like if you got struck by a lightning bolt and then it kind of tried to do that. That's what happens with a lot of people who I guess you can't survive an electrocution, because technically electrocution you die, but like getting hit by a lightning bolt. So like 5 years later, they have the neuropsychiatric symptoms are dead on of like dementia. The cataracts, usually like once it's full blown into like beyond a year, full blown, I mean, the patient progressively worsens and worsens and worsens. And they get to the point, and like say they don't want food anymore. They don't want it because they're almost subconsciously understanding what's killing them is this accumulation of energy, and you're just fueling the fire. So it's essentially, it's almost like a torture to them staying alive beyond a certain point. And you forget everything. It's like you're a newborn baby again.
And it depends how quickly, because those, especially with early onset dementia, forget it. I mean, it's very quick.
A lot, especially so in my research, so with like Alzheimer's Society, they had been doing brilliant research and basically did like economic trajectory of how could we thwart this, like mitigate this, contain it, even thwart, make this not as big of a crisis as we know it's going to be. And they said hypothetically, like a hypothetical treatment agent that can on average delay the onset by 5 years would be like, the goal for a solution. So kind of a lot of my dissertation research, like public health speaking, the impact, what I was trying to assess was that first of all, we know that like in the beginning, I was looking at like, just a character, like a breaking down of trajectories, of actual longitudinal trajectories of evolution of how we go about physical activity from age 50 to 90. And I had all the data, did very complex Bayesian simulation modeling. And it showed that essentially like after around retirement age and on, after age 70, we all, and this was in U.S. adults, population-based sample, white men, women, black men and women. We especially black race and female gender were, they were most at risk of this decline and had the most decline. But even white males, like as a civilization, essentially in a developed nation, that's like, and the thing is like kind of coming in, we knew, especially say like modern Americans, at least half are sedentary once they reach into their, age 65 and on, maybe even before that, like completely sedentary, like what you could call like a couch potato. And
well, we're seeing that at much younger ages now.
Yeah. And I mean, and there are ways. And so also like there was even studies showing in Japan, they were doing like, what if we pretended like we did research and showed that physical activity had all this benefit? Would it motivate people to get more exercise? And it didn't, even in Japanese. But still, we needed to assess kind of how much, like, if like they hadn't been able to actually assess the impact of, and then how much we need to do. This took me like at least 3 years of designing, programming in R, these specific Bayesian joint multi-state models. A very big endeavor, but I got it all down, got it all right. And basically I was going to assess, originally I was wanting to do like the whole healthy aging construct. I mean, this could be a generational project. And I was trying to do this as my dissertation. But I eventually limited down to, I'm going to isolate the independent and how much do you need to do a week? Does the intensity of it matter? Does is it the frequency and intensity, the duration each time, all that, and kind of over the decades, mainly like 50s and 60s and even on, like just to really see like, well, if you just do this much, this often over this course of life and when in this course, how much could it delay dementia, the onset of dementia in population? And what it came down to is, and I also, I went even above and beyond and added cancer as an outcome. And that's, once I added cancer in my dissertation advisor, like, no, don't do cancer. Well, that's when my suspicions aroused.
Gotcha.
Of what, like, well, I'm like, I've like mastered these models. We can reveal underlying etiologies of two of the most serious diseases that I would, along with heart disease, cardiovascular disease, that makes up the chronic disease construct of like unhealthy aging and what we're trying to break through. Right. And him saying no, and I'm thinking, and this whole time is like, they were giving me crap for like my advisor was giving me the technical training and the methodology and understanding that UNC, that program provided, is unmatched. But I went above and beyond, and I was trying to do some stuff that, they fund billions for, and they were like, just finish your dissertation. And COVID, so then I spent I dedicated an extra year or two of my life spending more time on this dissertation because I understood how the high impact and significance of it, and to be able to unearth these things, I'm moving biostatistics and epidemiology application to driving it forward for public health. And now later on I realized, and they're about to plan this pandemic and shit, but they weren't interested in actually mitigating disease or doing groundbreaking research. And
let me transition for you. So now pandemic hits, you just finished your PhD. Okay. Mm-hmm. At what
point? The pandemic hit while I was still like finishing my dissertation, like before I was going. So like while I was setting up to defend and such. And
did you have to do your dissertation via Zoom, pretty much?
I didn't even. So basically, like they basically like just give the degree because I was like, you guys are. I mean, once all roads led to niacin, because my dissertation uncovered this underlying thermodynamic etiology of dementia, of cancer, and it unveiled niacin's role as essentially countering of an inflammatory accumulation and progression of disease over aging. As at the time, I was getting a lot of attention because I had started a LinkedIn, like to try to, as I was like coming into that last semester to network, trying to build connections, maybe look for a job, whatever. And I was showing a lot of people in biopharma and biotech. A lot of high up people were taking notice, and then like they were like, let's focus on COVID, like blah blah blah. And so then I started reporting niacin on the LinkedIn, and eventually I got booted off. And eventually I said, like, that's when I started like emailing. I was emailing my advisor too. My advisor I was telling him like niacin should be able to, like, clearly there's with this virus, there's something going on where it's getting into mitochondria and with any virus kind of, there's a fusion of the mitochondria and it's using your energy. And niacin will provide this endothermic processing, literally like as if you're exercising, but putting a pill in your stomach, through your liver, to counter that and push it out of you essentially, and rewire your bioenergetic balance, mitochondrial function, energy metabolism, homeostasis to bring it back instead of, and niacinamide also, I figured out later with niacinamide is an excellent synergistic addition that attacks, counters, when with the COVID, with the virus SARS-CoV-2, it.
Let's bring that up. We'll bring up.
Right.
Let's bring that up since we're discussing that. So this is the protocol that you have with using not just the B vitamins and the flush niacin, but also different vitamins and supplements. And let me bring it up closer so everybody could take a look here. And hold on, I have to shrink it a little bit, and we'll start each one. Is that okay? Yeah. So we'll start. Let us begin right off the bat. The thing that you have noticed that is most beneficial with the protocol is flush niacin. So I'm going to ask first about COVID-19 and then about overall health. So let's start with flush niacin, and we'll talk about first COVID and then overall health. Okay. So go ahead.
So yeah, the flush niacin, I had, what I found out, like what I was mentioning right before I pulled it up, with this whole kind of bioenergetic mechanism, a thermodynamic equilibrium that you can say it's imagine like a chemical reaction and it being heterogeneous and in a steady state. So that's what essentially, so there are ways to go way out of this steady state, either like, a redox or an oxidation. And so like too much oxidation is like free radicals and inflammation. And that's what's happening is cells are accumulating a lot of energy in many forms, say cholesterol, after they try to metabolize food. And if you don't exercise enough, like if you accumulate, you're at a rate where you're accumulating more every day. Or there's even like, so many ways to essentially to stray away from this kind of steady state. So what the virus they say does is if enough people probably are like most general people and clinicians, they're aware of niacin's promotion of like reduction of bad cholesterol, promotion of good cholesterol transport, HDL boosting abilities, lowering of LDL. So all what that's doing is if you have energy collecting into your cells, you're not getting it out more. Eventually, with the HDLs, they're lipoproteins, is kind of like little cabs, like taxi cabs through a body, but they're developed in the liver. And you want them to develop in the liver more because this is where vitamin D, and through the bone marrow that it goes, and lungs and epithelial tissue. These are like immune kind of functioning. The lipids, these lipoproteins, HDL regulates kind of how immunity is essentially it's just a word of what they think energy metabolism homeostasis is. So if you're accumulating energy in your cells through your body, mostly like fat tissue, macrophages, blood cells, liver, like they're all through your body, pancreas. And so if you don't stay in net and you're not providing the right nutrients in your body, and you're eating a bunch of like non-organic food, not feeling well, there's misbalances, whatever, and even just like accumulating more and more energy, essentially it comes down to bad energy, and that'll be the cholesterol. And eventually your body wants to do a pro-inflammatory response to get that out, and that's kind of like that could be triggered by something like a virus, let's say, because it's like what they call a virus. And so this is a good way for the virus. Then this is how it invades you and its energy source to then do progeny to replicate through your body. And so it uses this cholesterol. It like collects and turns into what's called like lipid rafts. So if your HDL is lower, that means you have less time for good HDLs to be developed, for good immune function. And so those HDLs are like little salt. So what they're programmed to do thermodynamically is go and grab that cholesterol that's, say like it'll collect in your cells and also through your blood plasma. And it'll push them back. It'll push them back into your cells. So then they'll collect more. And then it takes more of these HDLs if there's more cholesterol, if there's more energy accumulating to do this. So there's then less circulating because they're getting used up really quickly, and they're putting more cholesterol into mainly like macrophages and adipose tissue. And so what this is doing then, it'll eventually your body, it's just too much. It's too much pressure again, kind of almost like with the dementia, but it's an acute, and it's kind of like an infarct, and it'll like do a pro-inflammatory response, and this could snow fireball, kind of like a fusion, and that could lead to a cytokine storm. And so what niacin does, if the flush niacin will essentially burn out these bad cholesterols. It will make it so that your body literally expends out all these free radicals, kinetic heat energy. And so that, say like, especially like right then, you don't have this, it basically provides like the opposite of an inflammation, essentially like a work energy.
Dmitry,
Dmitry,
what's the difference between flush niacin and regular niacin, if there's a difference?
Right. So the flush, that's the whole thing. So like that flush, it involves a lot of things, like with the inflammation release, there's a serotonin release, there's a histamine release from mast cells, there's prostaglandin 2 release. These are all intricate. So that's what you feel as that flush response. And so that's why that's the distinct one that does that. There are actually three. So there are three natural forms of vitamin B3, which are nicotinic acid, which is flush niacin if it's immediate release, and I'll get to that. There's niacinamide, aka nicotinamide, and also debatable, but there's nicotinamide riboside, which Chromadex makes, and I think it's okay, but it's not needed. It's just, they patent it because these are regularly available, and they pretend like they're as good as those. So the flush niacin is the nicotinic acid. So it's actually that's what gives you that flush response if it's immediately released. Now I
just want to ask, when I keep hearing nicotinamide, that sounds like nicotine. So I again, maybe it's just two totally different things, but I'm not sure if it is.
No, so nicotinic acid and nicotinamide, or flush niacin and niacinamide, they come from nicotine. That's how they extract most, like China. Yeah, and so there are studies here. I'll show you. If you go to like ResearchGate, if you Google ResearchGate, separation of nicotinic acid and nicotinamide from nicotine. And if you want to put that up, and I know I have you on the screen on the sharing, so I'll put that up in a second. But since we're talking about niacinamide, if you want to delve into that while you're doing the search. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, okay. I found it now.
Okay. Oh, let's go right to it.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me bring it. Just tell me what. Should I bring it right up?
Yeah, it should download. My computer's a piece of crap.
No, that's fine. There you go. No. Okay. Just leave it. Go back. Just go back.
Okay.
And no, that's me.
Okay.
Hold on. Because I saw
right now.
You don't have to download a paper. You could just put the site and put it up. And
yeah, so right here.
Okay, there you go.
So yeah, so literally in the leaves of the tobacco plant, I believe the leaves, and even when combusted, it comes out like they literally like look, they have these like tobacco brands, and so this isn't the smoke. This is micrograms per cig. So when you add this up, this is why you don't see people who have who smoke getting COVID as much.
Well, it's interesting because there was a paper very, very early. One of the first papers that came out was how smokers were not only not contracting COVID, but even if they were having better results. And it was the strangest. It was almost the exact opposite of what you would think. And again, I've never smoked a day in my life, and I have no interest in ever doing it. But it was really interesting to see that. It was just fascinating, and I was just curious. Of course, for some people that laughed it off, but now if we're talking about
it was a key thing, very key thing.
But if we're talking about niacin and nicotinic acid having a benefit on treating and not just treating the illness, but it treats, if you really go back and you hear about B complex and its benefits of preventing you from getting flus and preventing you having better results with colds. And again, I want to just say this right at the bat because I have to say this. We're doing this for educational purposes. Please, seek a physician, and if you have an issue during, if you have active COVID, please seek a physician. This is just for educational purposes. And what I'm going to ask Dmitry in a second is about the overall health benefits of, and which I'm going to ask right now. Let's talk about the overall health benefits of flush niacin and nicotinic acid. On how does it benefit an individual, for taking it, as well as, we'll start with the overall health benefits first, and then we'll go to the we'll go for both nicotinic acid and flush niacin. Go ahead.
Right. So,
matter of fact, Dmitry, I'm gonna bring back up the. There we go.
Right. So with the cigarettes, kind of that segues well, and I'll just even read this here. The motivation for this original investigation into specifically nicotinic acid supply as COVID-19 treatment was sparked by deduction of the possibility that the counterintuitive link observed with cigarette/tobacco nicotine smoking as being protective against ensuing SARS-CoV-2 infection may be explained by the fact that nicotine is oxidized into nicotinic acid during the combustion process, combined, and also niacinamide, combined with the realization through elucidation by this research of this exclusive ability of nicotinic acid, upon which human species, for the most part, continues dynamically to be thoroughly deficient upon through diet. And when I say thoroughly deficient, I mean to especially to fight off and counter against developing disease, but also say as a potent therapy that's been suppressed through it's special. There's this unique, intricate, and thermodynamically endothermic, and that is from its start to what it happens in the body. It's adding potential energy, kind of as if you're putting a pill that makes you exercise without having to exercise. And it's this biochemical processing. It induces this kind of this thermodynamic flush to ultimately restore health from, and or protect against, and along with niacinamide, inflammatory induced disease in general. And this explains a consensus body of literature of its potent healing and or protecting properties of niacin against cardiometabolic vascular conditions, kidney, liver conditions, damage, pulmonary, lung injury, viral infectious diseases, including influenza, HIV/AIDS. Now I'm knowing every single virus, tuberculosis, cancers. I mean, literally, if you take niacinamide, I assure you will never get cancer if you take enough.
Interesting.
Arthritic-related conditions, any inflammatory damaged tissues, neurodegeneration, dementia, all sorts of chronic diseases, autoimmune disorders, birth defects, neurodevelopmental immune function, mental health disorders, mast cell conditions, genetic disorders. So, I mean, everything you can think about. And so they all come down to this whole disease umbrella comes down to being governed by an underlying thermodynamic or bioenergetic mechanism. And this mechanism is based on dynamically in net and dynamically going through and in every cell of your body, and not just in net, but the balancing of energy metabolism and transfer and recycling through this complex role of the proper nutrients and lifestyle into out through your body. And so what flush niacin does is from the inside of your cell, it goes and gets into the inside of your cells, organelles like mitochondria mainly, and endoplasmic reticulum, and does all the signaling. It regulates the signaling of pro and anti, like basically pro and anti-inflammatory response phase shifts, of balancing, fine-tuning this energy metabolism homeostasis. So what niacin provides us with if everyone, and along with all the other elements in the protocol that I've tried to that I think are most special with niacin, niacinamide, the NAC.
Let's go into the NAC. I'm glad, because I was just about to transfer over to the NAC. So right, when did you find out? Because you had told me before we began that you found out about NAC after the flush niacin.
Yeah. Well, I knew about NAC always, and then
no, but I'm saying the benefits with the protocol.
Yeah. So NAC, I had always NAC, like always. My main one was always flush niacin, and I had always mentioned NAC, and the other ones, except I did a few more additions and took some out. But NAC was always like I was like, that's a cofactor we all need, because also with a lot of this this mitochondrial integrity and keeping energy metabolism as homeostatic as possible with our diet, and with kind of electrochemical bioenergetic reactions going on, very complex. There's a good biomarker and an important antioxidant that regulates, along with, if you've heard of NAD, NADH, which is basically another, that's a marker of at that point, kind of, is your body needing to address inflammation or not. But along with that is glutathione and glutamate, or essentially hydrogen peroxide and like superoxide balance. So that, which is called essentially antioxidation, and or like antioxidation, or like just keeping that in balance. So glutamate, glutathione is, along with NAD, NAD plus, if there's some kind of like inflammatory progression through your body, where there's oxidation starting free radicals, like as SARS-CoV-2 infection. And then, so like if like I said, if your HDL is low, if your vitamin D is low, you have bad cholesterol collecting up, you're going to be more, and you have low niacin supply, mainly the flush niacin. Eventually your mitochondria are going to burst, kind of. And along with getting all that crap, all the inflammation out, what promotes that on essentially a separate, there's like kind of three axes, is that NAD, NAD plus, the glutamate, glutathione, which you can think of like antioxidation, hydrogen peroxide, superoxide, and then ADP, ATP, which is like food. And so, hold on.
Dmitry, quick question.
Yeah, hold on. My charger is almost going to go up.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm actually going to... I'll take Dmitry off screen for a second as he charges his battery, and let's see if he. Okay, he's back. There you go. Welcome. No, I took you off screen for a quick second. No, that happens.
No problem. Technical
You'd be
difficulty.
surprised how many times that has happened so far in the first 7 episodes.
Right.
Dmitry, I want to ask you, how often should someone get their vitamin B checked? Because I've recommended twice a year on the vitamin D. How often should you get your vitamin B checked? And I'll go further. What specific vitamins can you check with a blood test?
So the any water-soluble vitamins, you're not going to be able to accurately measure, and especially vitamin Bs. They're all water. Especially the niacins. I mean, they get their half-lives maybe an hour, hour and a half. Most of them. All we know is like kind of in plasma, free flowing at that time. It's a completely meaningless measure. If it's low, like I supplement with the B vitamins very meticulously. Like right here, I have riboflavin. I have niacin. I have niacinamide. I have a very good B complex. I have thiamine. So like the daily recommended values for adults, children are arbitrary to begin with, and set on, for the B vitamins especially, are arbitrary and ridiculously deficient. Like if you look at this is like 3,000%, and so the FDA does this on purpose. By
the way, Dmitry, I'm going to bring up. Yeah. I'm going to single myself out right now, since I'm going to bring up what I take. So this is what I take once a day, every single day, once a day. I've been taking this for almost 20 years, thanks to my great aunt. God bless her. And tell me, based on, and by the way, I take a lot of other supplements as well. This is not the only thing I take. By the way, this used to be for about 3 years. The first 3 years, this was the only thing I took. And then I started taking a multivitamin and then added a vitamin C to it. And now I have a whole protocol. Does this look pretty decent of what I'm taking? And what else would you recommend that I should add into the regimen?
So with that one, I like how it has 100 milligrams riboflavin and thiamine. What I don't like is folic acid, which many people don't have a problem with, but people with that MTHFR who have weird methylation problems, I call it, they don't necessarily can't necessarily use the folic acid, and they need a natural folate to supply to them. They don't have an enzyme that can convert it to folic acid to folate, so or it's defunct. But what I like, so it probably for most people, it's fine. Like folic acid.
Without mentioning brands, something that would be a good, yeah.
So I would replace, it says actually it has as what it's called, like it's called 5-methyl tetrahydrofolic acid, glucosamine salt, blah, 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 or quatrafolic. That's probably fine. Like there's like a MTHF folate. That's the best. Also, you have the B12. You have the cyanocobalamin. You can
is that methyl, good, bad, ugly?
For some people, it's probably fine. But I like the methylcobalamin, and it probably would. I'd like to do, I like 500 micrograms.
How is it overall? I mean, the fact that I'm taking something to begin with, because the overwhelming majority of people don't take anything. But how is this overall on if I just kept taking this? And this is what I've been taking, as I said, for years.
It's good overall, but like the thing is that so the niacinamide, what I would do then is
what should I add? What should I add to it?
This is the biggest thing, the flush niacin. And
all right, hold on 1 second. Let me. I'm going to remove this, and because I want to see it, without and without showing any labels.
Okay.
Just so that is the flush niacin.
Yeah. So it's like a white powder kind of citrus. It's like a little clumpy, citrusy kind of taste. It's like a squirt or a Mountain Dew kind of. So I would get.
Okay.
Eventually, actually, I'm going to be having my own product with niacin and niacinamide. But that's for another day. But if you can get niacin. Do you have the other one? You can get them in pills, capsules. I like with the powder because you want it immediately released dump. So if you notice your vitamin B complex product, it didn't have.
It does not have flush niacin. No.
Correct. Yeah. So, but it's good. That's fine though, because on top of that, you want the most important B vitamin and probably compound nutrient and amino acid is really what it is for regulation of homeostasis and overall, health promotion and reversion of disease, and prevention, chronic disease, all that to keep health and functioning. Vitamin B3, flush niacin, nicotinic acid, immediate release, the one that gives you the flush. And you don't have to necessarily start high. A lot of people, like I do 750 milligrams of flush niacin with.
Well, how long? Let me ask you, how long have you been taking it?
So I started taking it since mid-March of 2020 when I first was coming onto it. And a lot of people will. There's an obstacle around it with the flush to incorporate it into people's lives, and that gives Biopharma a huge advantage because.
By the way, flush means like does that literally mean like flush of your face and flush of your?
Yeah. So it's called. I forget the acronym is NASTY, like Hillary, nasty woman, but it's they do a
nice.
They do, but it's essentially you'll get red as a crab, and
will you have a fever or anything, or is it just
no? So it's actually it's the thing is like if you have a fever, I've had people 103-degree fever and seen it before my eyes, and like dying of like this crazy COVID all of a sudden, and no,
that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like, will you develop like you'll be flush? But will you develop like any type of medical condition from it at first, or no, it'll be
so that's the thing is there are so all of that's acute. The flush is, and you eventually continue dosing, it becomes enjoyable, eventually null. When it becomes kind of null, that's when you add that methyl B complex. Like if you get a methyl B complex and TMG, and it gives you these methyl groups. So that flush niacin can continue to drive out free radicals. A lot of it's a very intricate mechanism, but a part of the flush response is literally exfoliation of free radical electrons out of your body, like kinetic heat energy. So as you get red, it's literally your blood vessels open up, but also like you'll feel your skin warm. They're literally invisible little fireballs coming out of your skin.
Oh, jeez.
So that's why people
might feel that they're concerned about that.
People have went to ER. People have went to ER, and I tell them if you have like an acute case, you need it and you want to get it out, start at least at 500 milligrams. But otherwise, if you want to incorporate it into your life, starting off that high is it could be. It could be
bad.
No, well, so it could be bad because people would be non-compliant. Be like, I don't like that. That was trippy. Like it's a novel experience.
That's the bad part. Well, what I'm saying is, what's a good start? A good start is like 25.
And also, 50. Like people with low blood pressure, people with like low blood pressure. If you already have stomach ulcers, you should definitely not start high. Also, like long haulers, some long haulers have started high and handled it brilliantly. But with the long haulers, they have so much imbalance of their vitamin Bs and through their citric acid cycle and oxidation and inflammation that's continuing. Their bodies, it's like that. So it's like it's too much at first to start. But in general, I would start, if you're brave, start at least 200 milligrams. And that'll give you so you know what the flush is. Otherwise, start, and they don't make products. And that's what I'm going to be doing is making the combinations of where you can start for children, for beginners. I would start, like 50 milligrams. And if most people probably won't flush, and then maybe do 100 or 75. Kind of go up, and once you experience the flush, which it comes in like 15 minutes, feels like an inverted tingly sunburn. It lasts maybe 45 minutes. Like, don't freak out. If people freak out because so even if you have low blood pressure, and I'd say do it after meals. Right. And it's just the first few times it's just novel, but then it's like you're like, oh, okay, and your body psychologically adjusts. And you want to kind of just build up. Once you know what it is, then you can start going into and like unless your body's like some people will have like it'll do a histamine releases that is too much from the mast cells for like people with MECS POTS or MCAS POTS, and that's like especially long haulers with that. Oh shoot. That's why I like also the niacinamide. It's like similar. It's just white powder. If you have 100 milligrams of that in your B complex. So now if you take that B complex once a day, right?
Yeah, let's bring it up again. So I have, I take it every single day, once a day.
So take out 100 milligrams from say if you work up to 500 milligrams, right? So one of the times you take it, and I'm at like 750 of each twice a day after meals. I used to take 1 gram, sometimes 2 grams of flush niacin, but the niacinamide addition, it essentially it'll eventually completely keep, I believe, even Lyme disease and these kinds of mast cell activation syndromes, and POTS with the trichadia and and again with proper other replenishment of B vitamins.
That should be very interesting.
Right. So eventually, like when you work up, most adults like 500 flush and mide, or like 750, or like 1 gram for kids. Like everyone can start, 50, 100, or adult, like kids, little kids, they can start like 25 and work up. Once you'll kind of, for most general adults, once it's like 500 doses are what should be maintained at least once a day. That will make sure to prevent COVID. And if you add NAC even to it, with the NAC,
by the way, that's the one thing I would like to add very soon. The one thing I would like to add, because I've been recommended very highly to go the NAC route, to go the NAC of, and I'm highly considering doing that, just for overall health. However, as you even put in your protocol, the flush niacin, the NAC, the B vitamins are not the only things that are not the only vitamins and supplements that you have in your protocol. Let's go over the others, because I think they're equally as important, like vitamin C. And I started taking selenium very early on because I read a Chinese study saying that people with high levels of selenium are having better outcomes.
Yeah, selenium is part of the rattling of the energy metabolism, say, that happens during COVID or other viral diseases. And then there's a huge deficiency of the selenium, and selenium helps in one carbon cycle and methylation balance, to prevent the homocysteine, very intricate mechanism. But yes, selenium also has many protective effects against, say like prostate cancer, breast cancer. Selenium's been around, high dose selenium. A lot of good HIV/AIDS specialist clinicians give that to HIV patients, have very successful outcomes. But yeah, selenium's good stuff.
And I take 200 micrograms a day of selenium.
Yeah, that's what I do exactly.
As certified organic mustard seed extract.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I have the yeast. The yeast. I don't even know that there's so many forms of selenium now. The normal one's the selenium methionine, but that's like 90% of the yeast, probably in yours too. Yours is probably similar to the yeast.
Let me take a look.
The yeast ones have the breast and prostate cancer.
Right. And by the way, this is this is made from organic plant-based selenium.
So yeah, that'll be good.
And I started taking it in late March when I heard, and I'll tell you the person I heard it from flat out is do you know former radio talk show host, now he has a blog, Michael Savage. Savage talks about vitamins and supplements. And he read the study, which I heard, and I'm like, this is something I probably should take. Hearing that people in China, and then they further research has shown that selenium is having a benefit of people that contract COVID and are having better outcomes without, not being hospitalized, not dying. And I said, you know what, let me just put it in as part of my diet. one thing I've had as part of my diet for quite a few years is both vitamin C and vitamin D3. I take now. I've always taken a gram of C, but now I've bumped it up to 2 daily, using ascorbic acid, and vitamin D. So I'll share this. So when I was almost 500 pounds, I weighed 472 pounds at my peak. And I had my vitamin B and my vitamin D checked out. My vitamin D was at 8. Okay. I had my vitamin D checked out. Yeah. Isn't that insane?
I've never.
My vitamin, 8, like non-existent. Okay.
Yeah. Did you not go out to in the sun much?
Not really. Well, I kind of still don't, but so that's why I supplement. I take 7,000 units a day. So, but remember, I was also 250 pounds heavier. So now, I just had to
harder to metabolize when you're heavier too.
Yeah, exactly. This winter, I had it checked. 64.
That's a lot better.
And
have you had it checked in the summer yet?
No, but I am gonna check it in August. That's my goal. My goal is to get it checked out in August because I want to see if I got it up to 80. I want to try to get it up to 80.
Yeah, 80s is very good. And that.
However, I've been told that if you go over, say, 90, 100, that's too. It's not good.
If you stay over that high,
right?
Like and like for weeks, if you supplement and you're that high, or like a lot of say the Euro soccer tournament, I'm sure a lot of theirs was over 100 at one point.
Oh,
but,
sure.
But it's you don't have to overdo the D. The D is you want to make sure it's not below 30, especially. But if it gives you a lot. It has a very accompanying role in immune function during recovery too. So supplementing during recovery, like even 100 micrograms here and there, I do at least 25 to 50 a day, just like these little gel tabs.
Same here.
So
as a matter of fact, by the package, and I'm not gonna let's not talk about brand names, but it looks like you and I it looks like pretty much the same one. I mean, it's a green bottle.
That's the D3. You don't need anything fancy. Some people they can't. They won't eat enough kind of leafy green vegetables, and so they won't have enough vitamin K to for a conversion step.
That is something.
So a lot of them, they'll have like a Co with the K. An extra K can't hurt either.
And that's something. That's something that Dr. Richard Urso talks about in particular. He talks about adding the vitamin K, and I'm probably going to at some point because. And by the way, can you again? Me not being a physician, but just being someone curious. Can you get vitamin K checked out in a blood test?
Yeah, they'll do it, but you can order that certainly, but K will be it's not needed as long as your vitamin
D is good. Is your vitamin K usually fine?
Well, the K will also help with like calcium channeling.
Okay,
but it doesn't hurt to add on top. But the keys are the niacins and NACs, like so all these that you see.
And by the way, I'm glad because I want to talk about the other two that before I saw your protocol, I have never heard of before in my life.
Yeah,
butyrate and taurine.
Butyrate, yeah. So the butyrate. COVID, and a lot of people have leaky guts. This is now being leaked.
Now, okay, I know what you're talking about now.
So it's a lot of leaky gut disorders and like intestinal health and the whole gut microbial balance, lack of fibers, essentially it comes down to this lack of synthesis, dynamically preserved of butyrate, sometimes acetate too. And butyrate works in combo with flush niacin in its action with this GPR109A receptor that essentially regulates pro and anti-inflammatory responses through the body. Also, dispersing nutrients through the body into the CNS, even through the blood. So butyrate together with niacin with the flush niacin are showing to be a very promising treatment for Parkinson's disease. I'm getting back many reports of it's, and again, kind of working up. Some people, a lot of just nicotinic acid, flush niacin is kind of the main one, but with butyrate too, and in autism spectrum disorders too. My older brother has classical autism. I haven't seen him in a while, but I've been back in Ohio. I'm not there now, but I'm pretty sure my dad gives him now with the butyrate and the flush niacin. And it's his symptoms. He just looks more normal. I've noticed in pictures his behavior issues, social issues are alleviated. But it's like, there's a huge interplay with the gut and the brain axes that butyrate has a fundamental role. And a lot of people, we don't process fibers, or there's birth defects, genetic things, toxins exposed to malnutrition at different stages of development, and even from conception. A lot of it is related to then the gut not being able to provide the right nutrients, the right time for brain functions that are needed to be, supplied with the proper kind of nutrients and energy requirements. So again, and then with butyrate, the COVID, there's something very more deep about butyrate that I'm looking into still, but we know that we've identified now that COVID literally depletes your butyrate. It uses it up. And
now let me ask you, how can you get butyrate? How could can you get it via supplement?
Yeah, you can go. There's Body Bio is an amazing new. I don't know if they're new, but they have the best customer support of any company I've ever probably seen in my life. I'm hearing.
I think I just recently, and again, I don't want to. We're not promoting any companies here. I don't want to promote any. We're not promoting anything. However, there are ways to get butyrate and taurine. And by the way, I was just checking my multivitamin, make sure I did not have it, because as I said, I've never heard of butyrate and taurine before I saw your protocol. And I am very, very likely probably going to start butyrate because as someone has acid reflux, I think it might be a good thing to start a small amount of butyrate. Especially, again, I'm focusing for just me individually, just on overall health. If I wasn't focusing on overall health, I would have lost 250 pounds. And just all of these things in your body are just so essential because, again, we're talking about COVID. But if, say, we took out the word COVID and I just said fighting off colds, fighting off bronchitis, fighting off pneumonias, fighting off respiratory infections.
Yeah, respiratory illness.
Could you use the same protocol?
Yes,
COPD. Same protocol.
Yeah, I'd say every single disease and ailment. The key the key will be to building up with the niacins, and incorporating NAC. Which what I wanted to just briefly cover with that is, with also COVID, here we'll
go right back up to it. Good.
Okay. Yeah. So where is that damn? There it is. Right here.
But hold on. While I have a second.
Okay.
There's a person that I continue to see coming in and out of the screen. Who, if you don't mind me asking, who is that person? And
my roommate.
Your roommate. Okay.
Yeah. Angela. kind of basically my Pepper Potts for Tony Stark, but we're not rich.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so
sorry, go back to the niacins and what we were talking about.
Yeah, the NAC. So with this kind of when the SARS-CoV-2 virus is attacking the gut and depleting the butyrate, and inflammation's coming, and then there's no niacin to counter it, or like, so what happens then is also what's going on is there's oxidative stress cascading more and more, kind of with the cytokine storm, and during the acute infarct, let's say, and so your glutathin then so like this antioxidant.
I've heard of that. I've heard of yes, I've heard a lot about that lately. Go ahead.
So glutatin's like a regulator, like a biomarker of, you need to keep it from depleting, which say, like, if you have another thing, like people with gout and high uric acid, they have depletion of glutathin and too high of glutamate. So like you could do glutathin, like this would be glutamate, this would be glutathin, but it's more of like you wanted that in an equilibrium. So when there's oxidative cascades, you're getting this O radical, it's like free radical electrons, essentially, like superoxide.
Do you want me to show? I'm going to show that on the screen.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So yeah, so when you have like an inflammatory episode progressing, like say like a respiratory viral infection that's ensuing, like a live acute COVID case, towards the cytokine storm, and even beyond, as you say, like with the long COVID, and your body's now just not regulating out the inflammation. You have what's going on is, so there's like superoxides forming because the oxygen you breathe, there's essentially you don't have, basically, like with the water and the oxygen you put in your body, there's not enough to essentially, there's too many electrons loading. And what will happen as a default is that so instead of like H2O and CO2 that's left off, or CO2 that's emitted, you're also getting these extra O's with like an odd number of electrons, and that's like inflammation. Likewise, without niacin, flesh niacin, and also I would say niacinamide on the exterior of cells. The flesh, this is like in the mitochondria, within the battery of the cell, the whole core energy metabolism cycle going through. And then here's also like food. So adipinin, so ADP and ATP, kind of, all of this has to be in an equilibrium. And in inflammatory states, this one, NADH and ADP, are getting in excess because there's not enough, essentially, potential energy or matter for the free radicals to go away or to be bonded with and in an equilibrium. And that's also like kind of as you eat, you want to eat and have this, so like the energy you put in through food and beverage, along with essentially how much niacin you put into your body, and if that will prevent that, along with NAC, which promotes essentially what this is like glutathin, and this would be glutamate balance. Okay. And so this is kind of like a good diet. This is like a good balanced diet, healthy lifestyle. This is like niacin supply, and this is essentially NAC supply. So that's what preserves the energy metabolism, the cellular respiration through through the inside of your cells. And so you want this all to be in an equilibrium. During a COVID attack or during like chronic disease development, cardiometabolic risk factors, even say like pulmonary issues, COPD, cancer, eventually what's going on is your body is so accumulated and dispersed with free radicals and oxidatives and in that state that you.
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because how I mean, one of the things that I'm thinking about, one of the things that I'm thinking about here is our lifestyles between North American and Western culture and Eastern Asian culture. Clearly, Eastern Asian culture, they're living, and Mediterranean culture, they're living longer because of their diets. Okay? What is the difference? Can you bring that image back up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that image, what's the difference between their diets of eating, different like oil, healthier oils and organic foods compared to the American culture or Western culture of processed foods, fast food and stuff like that?
Yeah. So
is
like
there a lack of something in the Western culture diet that is maybe of the three of these that's lacking, which is causing more of an issue with respiratory illnesses like COVID?
Yeah, I mean that I'd say so a non-processed food diet has worse quality proteins. And so it messes up kind of all this in terms of energy metabolism again and how energy is stored. And that again gets down to the whole HDL and how your body transports dynamically forward, how it transports energy through the body and cholesterol accumulation, like high bad cholesterol, esterified cholesterols in cells, like bad triglycerides. Eventually they're going to turn into oxidative products. And so a processed diet, like a more Americanized diet, we want it quick. We don't have the, I'm European and like I know Italians or French, they take their time to cook and incorporate in their life. And so Americans are more quick on the go and I like fast food here and there sometimes, but
by the way, for me, it's been 504 days since, no, I'm sorry. My apologies. It's been 508 days since I last ate fast food. And I decided to originally give it up for Lent. I'm as a Roman Catholic, I gave it up for Lent. And then with COVID, I'm like, you know what? I have to give this up entirely. Between that, and then I also gave up eating bread. And interesting, we talked about Alzheimer's and dementia because have you read the book Grain Brain by David Perlmutter?
No.
He talks about leaky gut and Alzheimer's and dementia by processed foods and in particular bread.
Bad carbs.
Bad carbs, right? Exactly. That's exactly what he talks about.
Yeah. So that's the whole. Yeah, like a lot of they have processed food usually has more bad carbs, and not as kind of the ratio of high of proteins, which provides, the way the mitochondria break them down. It's so intricate, and there's a good study in Cell that came out about a year and a half ago. And they but it's essentially it's pointing to that the processed foods and like a non-diverse diet in general for the population is that's fueling cardiometabolic diseases, like say like in risk factors like obesity, insulin resistance, metabolic syndromes, diabetes,
And this has
into
been going on for
atherosclerosis.
decades. It's been going on for decades.
Right. So the whole atherosclerosis pathway, again, that's with HDL again, is that you have cholesterol gaining through your blood and arteries, and essentially it hardens and stiffens them, and that's when your HDL gets. So that's a path to, say, a heart attack or a stroke usually.
And Dmitry, you bring that up. I that's why I feel so fortunate I lost the weight when I did, because my HDL I have to get my HDL up a little bit more. It's about 45. It's about 45.
Yeah, so you take flush niacin, and the HDL is by far, vitamin D below 30 is the most like shocking high impact risk factor for getting COVID. But what drives COVID is low HDL. If your HDL and your cholesterol transport and your triglycerides are high, like towards atherosclerosis, that is dictated by low HDL and through the disease course of the acute.
What would be a good HDL to get it up to? Even though 45 is considered about the low end of normal.
So like mid 50s and up is good. 60, low 60s is really good. Some people even have high 60s. Just don't, like, if you don't eat at all, it might get too high. But the HDL low, like, so niacin you take, if you work up to niacin, you might even, and I would add the niacinamide to and follow the protocol. And you won't even need much NAC if you're like, some people, I want to note, like some people, if they take too much NAC, NAC gives you, because this glutathione, it promotes the glutathione in your brain even. So a lot of people will get it to where it's like you took a bong rip of sativa or something, where you get like a really kind of heightened and more alert acuity to your day. And that can cause panic or anxiety in a very few minority. So, as a reverter of disease, though, NAC plays you should incorporate it in every dose. But as prophylactic or general health maintenance, you don't necessarily have to do it all the time as when you do the niacin. But if you take the niacin, the flush niacin mainly, and you build up to what's comfortable. There's people with hypercholesterolemia and just horrible lipids, very low HDL, super high LDL, VLDL, just, atherosclerosis, at risk of horrible coronary heart disease.
Yeah, the bad one is the LDL, right?
Well, the LDLs are good. It's just you don't want
which is considered the bad cholesterol. Which is considered the bad.
The HDL's the good, the LDL's the bad.
Yeah, my LDL used to be very bad at one point, and I've gotten that down to like. I mean, it was too high. So now I've gotten that down to about. I want to say I think I got it down to about 85, and I was told that was pretty good to get. And that's the lowest it's been from the beginning, since I was an early, since I started the whole process of losing weight. I want to bring up one more topic before we go. Vaccine. What's your take?
So the vaccines. I mean, again, I've been trying to submit my reports. I don't know if I mentioned I've been being censored by even the preprints. They auto reject my reports since March 2020. And like with the cholesterol, the HDL, is if you just incorporate niacin supplementation in your life, this sufficient amount, and our diets and the B complex usually doesn't have like extra supplementation, no one would ever get COVID. And also you'll rapidly recover. And I was reporting this, and the vaccines were meant, this is the whole objective of this, obviously, is to get as many people vaccinated as possible. So I do very intense methodological epidemiology and biostatistics. And so what I like, how did I, I'll just go objectively by the numbers. So this is how I knew the vaccines were going to be meaningless mitigation of COVID-19 for the cost of meaningful morbidity and mortality. Essentially, what I would say is a genocide to apply to the global population. And how I knew this is I actually reviewed their clinical trials instead of blindly trusting this safe and effective propaganda. And so if you look at their clinical trials, again, this is objective breakdown. And I'm just like, there's no opinions about this. I'm just reporting the science. So this is, if you extrapolated, okay, first of all, let's start at Pfizer.
You want me to bring it up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, here you go.
So this is on my Twitter, at niacin, and the C is like a 3 for vitamin B3, and niacin was.
Yeah, I was just promoting that, and I'm going to promote it again right now. There you go. So, and I'll leave that up on the screen. Go right ahead. Right. So here we go. Like, so if they say it's 94.5% effective. Yeah, because it's that. So if you actually, let's see, where was here, I'll do the individual threads. Gosh, so slow. The Chinese are probably hacking my stuff right now. Let's see. So if you, so 95% efficacy measure. Here we go. The relative. People are talking. I've been saying this. I did this in January, but I calculated this as soon as it came out in November. The published study. So 8 cases per 17,000. I've had this discussion on a number of occasions between relative and absolute.
Right. So that's 90. So if you do the calculation, right, all the difference between this and you subtract that from 1 is 95% less risk of occurrence, right? Now, the only difference now from that and that is a minus sign or a division, right?
Okay.
The same thing. But so this means that, and this is also, note, this is not versus natural immunity, this placebo. This is versus a failed garbage vaccine before, right? So you're going to get 9 less COVID cases per 1,000 persons for vaccine versus garbage vaccine.
Well, I mean, placebo could just be saline or it could just be water.
No, they used their placebo was a they didn't do that. That's the whole thing. So what they're comparing to you, and that's what when I said earlier here, like what they're, and then their hospitalizations. I mean, so Jesus, what are these people saying? All right. Yeah, like, so they're comparing against a failed, they call it placebo because it's supposed to be like the standard control. And at the time, they're like, oh, it's supposed to be like at the time the best thing, that's what's being the treatment, the standard treatment that's being applied for this. And they're assuming like, oh, some failed garbage non-mRNA vaccine. Anyways, if they compared a real placebo, for all we know, that real placebo, like a salt solution, could have been more effective than the vaccine. So what they're saying is not versus natural immunity. First of all, it's versus a failed vaccine. Anyway, so what we would see based on 9 less cases per 1,000, I believe it was. So the absolute is a more population health interpretable way to disseminate knowledge, the reporting of the results of what they want to apply to the global population. They're just so there essentially is. So if they gave it for every 52,000 people over the course of the week, the Pfizer vaccine leads to the occurrence of only 70 less cases. This is versus, again, the garbage previous vaccine. So what it comes down to was, so where was that 0.009? Right here. So 9, yeah. So that this 9 less cases per 1,000. What that really is a 0.13% less COVID cases. All right.
Which is nothing. That's nothing.
And that's only, and this is also, I'm going to get into this too. This is, all right. And so
here, I'll stop the screen. Go ahead. Okay.
Right. So that was the Pfizer's like 1 to 2 weeks. We don't know beyond that. Then the Moderna, same things, 1.2%, 2 months, right? And then God, I hate when people comment. Shout out Tim Spoon, but when I'm writing the threads.
Hold on. Let me take 2 angles. I'm going to ask you 2 questions here. First question. Obviously, you see VAERS, and by the way, you got to raise your camera up a little bit.
Okay.
There you go. Mm-hmm. First, you see the VAERS. Okay.
Yeah.
You see 463,000 adverse reactions, 11,000 deaths, and it's going up by 2,000 a week. And if you want to believe the Harvard study that it only reports 1%, I don't believe that. I believe because more people know about VAERS, I believe it might still be underdoing it, but potentially a factor of 5 to 10, which is still a lot. First off, and I said this on my last episode, where I had 5 post-COVID vaccinated injured people on, which was so heartbreaking. And I'm going to do it again on Tuesday. And I'm going to continue doing it until they become mainstream, because they did nothing wrong. Okay? All they're doing, all they want to be is heard. Yeah. And they deserve to be heard. Okay? And
yeah, I mean, they got tricked. They told them this garbage, because they want to give it, if they applied this. So this is how many serious adverse events. This is how many serious, assuming if everyone is healthy. You can't do a trial on only health stable people and then say, oh, well, we don't have data on, say, pregnant women or people with comorbidities that say it's bad for them.
For obesity, when 40% of the country is obese.
But not
in the United States I'm talking about.
But God forbid for these biopharmaceutical companies, if they knew it. This is why they included only health stable. If they included a heterogeneous representative sample of global population, their trials would be halted. Because there would be so many adverse effects. And that's the second question. Yeah.
Which I think is, in reference to you, very important one. How many have you seen people post-vaccinated injured come to you and say, Dmitry, I need your help. I see this protocol that you have. Will it help those that are post-vax injured? Especially since their doctors are completely gaslighting them, either because they're being told there's nothing wrong with them, or there's something wrong in their brain and they have to see a psychiatrist.
Anxiety.
And psychiatric help.
Yeah, they were saying the same shit to long haulers. It's an absolute farce of medical practice. They're committing genocide, whether knowingly or unknowingly. They're complicit. It's the dissemination of saying this garbage is safe and effective. They call this stuff rare. What's rare is that, first of all, COVID's rare. And you're looking at meaningless mitigation of something that's already rare. And then if you extrapolate to their rare clinical trial outcomes of these adverse effects to a global population, you're talking about millions and millions. If they gave everyone in the world AstraZeneca, assuming everyone in the world is healthy, you would see 62,400,000 adverse events over 6 weeks if they gave it to everyone for 1.2% less COVID cases. Yeah. And so what they do is they say like this percentage, like, oh, we only saw 0.4%, 0.3. Well, 0.3% of billions is hundreds of millions.
Right. Exactly. First off, 1% of 7.8 billion is 78 million. That's 1%. So if you want to say 0.1, that's still 7.8 million times that. You said 0.3, 0.4. That's 30 million people.
Right, and these are underestimates. These are underestimates because, again, this is assuming everyone's healthy. This is assuming that everyone's healthy. And also the people who got counted for the like anaphylactic shock, like the minor acute reaction, whatever, they didn't get counted in these trials for what would happen after that. So you're underreporting even the adverse events. So yes, you're talking about a genocide for meaningless mitigation.
Dmitry, we have no idea what the long-term effects are of these things.
And that too. This is exactly that too. And they thought this is worth it, leading to only 0.03% less COVID-19 cases over 1 week for Pfizer, 0.24% for Moderna, 0.24% for AstraZeneca over a few weeks. That's worth putting hundreds of millions, ruining their lives.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room then. So the elephant in the room is, I don't know if you saw Alex Berenson's tweet from yesterday, which got him suspended for 12 hours, but his tweet talking about how with the Israeli data and the UK data, that shows that these vaccines, if they work for 3 to 6 months, I mean, that might be it. And now it's shown to be ineffective. Yeah. And we're back at square one.
Yeah.
But yet let me finish. Yeah. Yet in quarter one, these companies made $19 billion combined, and we're still waiting for the Q2 numbers, which should come out within the next few weeks.
That was their profit?
No, but that 19 billion was just Q1. We don't even know what Q2 is. For all we know, they made $50+ billion more.
Yeah, it's a racket. It's a racket. They're taking money from our tax-paying sum and giving it to biopharma for this garbage. And at the same time, look, these are our medical doctors. I was telling people
Well, let's get into them. Glad you bring that up. Let's get into them. Why are doctors not? And again, I've had different people on, different points of view, and I am open. Anyone can come on, have a debate. Okay, more than open. And oftentimes I will find commonality, and certainly with you, Dmitry, I have found quite a bit of commonality with you because one, I take a B complex every day, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years. Okay, and two, I take a whole bunch of supplements and vitamins, and again, according to my hematologist, I am actually the healthiest that I've been in not just this past year, but in the last 5 years. And I'm 40. Okay.
Wait till you add the niacin.
And wait till I add the niacin. We're going to talk about that off air. So my question for you is, why are doctors? I remember 15, 20 years ago when you got sick, you were prescribed something, you got better. Now, what these doctors are saying is, it's viral. Just get rest. Just get rest, Tylenol, Gatorade, and if you want to take chicken soup, you can take chicken soup. And it turns out for a lot of people, that doesn't work. They ended up getting more and more sick. Then they have to go to X doctor or Y doctor, get prescribed stuff that's unhealthy for them.
And that's what they're doing with ivermectin. That's what they're doing with ivermectin now.
But again, even if you disagree with the ivermectin, at least you have a chain of a group of doctors that are at least trying to promote early treatment. How about the 90%
they're censoring niacin? They're suppressing what if you simply supplemented the population sufficiently with, no one would have ever had COVID, and if after the fact they would have been reverted back. All these doctors pushing IBM know about niacin. They know they can't make money off niacin because it would ruin their RX telemetry purpose drug hustle.
Dimitri, that's the reason why I had you come on today, because you're promoting what I'm starting to do. Okay, one of the many topics I want to discuss on Joe's Place is promoting good health. We need to promote good health. If we don't promote good health in this country and in Western culture, okay, stuff like so many issues are going to explode. And I'm so glad. I am so glad you brought up Parkinson's and dementia, which for so many families, including myself, is just such a heartbreak. Someone should not be living the end of their lives the way a person that lives with dementia and Alzheimer's does. It is so tragic and it's heartbreaking to see that. That is an awful way to die.
Yeah, and if ultimate to all this is healthy lifestyle, mental health, good diet, lifestyle behaviors, exercise. The niacins and the protocol, mainly the niacins, will give you an excellent tool in your kit to overcome a lot of these developed behaviors and to revert back to modifying and sustaining them for the better, to prevent these neurodegenerative conditions downstream in the life epoch, and chronic disease, and again is promote healthy aging. The niacin will thwart the dementia crisis. It will 100% thwart cancer crisis. It will 100% eradicate all viruses.
Which, by the way, did you know that there is 10 to the power of 31 viruses on this planet?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that, let's say, pathogens try to come into the human body when it doesn't have, when it's in susceptible, vulnerable states, for it to get its energy and do project, like to replicate and multiply. So it's all based on, what kind of predisposition bioenergetically are you having coming in? The niacin keeps you essentially like bulletproof, foolproof to not get that.
But I also think I see, but again, I don't think it's just the niacin and the beans. I think it's all combined, because you need to have a good health profile. If any one of those is deficient, so say, I'm just giving an example. Say all of those are good except your vitamin D is 10. That's not good.
Yeah, the vitamin D won't be. Yeah, they all go together. But in terms of like disease and bioenergetic balance, its role in health and preventing, say, infection and COVID, the niacin is that driver. It's like the inverse counter of it. But yes, the healthy lifestyle behaviors, the thing is, it's hard for many people to modify and sustain them. And that's again because they're deficient in a lot of the nutrients. They're not eating the right stuff. But that, like, incorporating all this supplementation, especially of the niacins, and comfortably, and getting your other B vitamins right and everything else, that will allow you to exercise more, to enjoy life more, to make more money, to buy better food, to understand how much better you can feel, and not have it be as difficult to attain and maintain. So it all is connected. And yeah, you were asking also about with the vaccines. I've had preliminary reports. I have a few people I'm communicating with closely. They're now on one's week 4, one's week 6. I have like 5 other people who are like within week 1, but the week 6 and week 4, they had some pretty bad vaccine damage from AstraZeneca, where it was like just neurological problems, just chronic fatigue, some with tremors. It's just a smorgasbord of horrible things and autoimmune responses that these vaccines trigger within people, even if you're completely healthy, as shown in the clinical trials.
But let me ask. I mean, what breaks my heart is that why are these people being told, when they contract COVID, and it's still happening 16 freaking months later? Go home and rest. Well, no, my question for you is like, there's got to be what the heck is wrong with our medical system? The fact that if someone contracts COVID,
they don't know about niacin,
and they do nothing. They do nothing. Yeah, but they don't even do anything.
Yeah, they're probably also they were getting paid by insurance companies. Like they're all contracted with insurance companies.
And then go to the hospital.
Yeah, they all get a cut. They all get a cut.
By the hospital, forget it.
Yeah, and I mean, remdesivir is fake niacinamide. That's UNC. When I'm finished, I'm really reporting to them. Hey, here's the antidote. I think at the time, I know now. Here's niacin. Like, yeah, and I was naive, and they never replied, and they tried to call me crazy and put me in a mental hospital, and then all the journals suppressed me. But then I realized months later, I looked into the chemical structures and metabolism, and mechanism of action bullshit that they've been completely fabricating about remdesivir, and you see that it metabolizes.
The studies show it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's basically a toxic nicotinamide that they built upon. They've done this with nicotinic acid, flush niacin, which is innate to T cell immunity function and response to clear, to target, identify, kill, clear, and release out pathogens, essentially. And so niacin is your niacin supply is necessary. It's part of the function of recruitment of T cells to be able to identify pathogens, deal with them, and expel them out your body. And so there's another one now. Roche made another fake, like another remdesivir, basically. And so FDA, the UNC's getting $200 million in funding while I'm reporting them niacin about their fake niacin. And they're charging people $5,000 a dose for it. It doesn't do anything, and it's toxic. NIH is funding hundreds of more millions of our tax money to study it in pregnant women. And then I went to NIH. I sent FDA emails. I sent all my reports. They ignore and censor.
Well, let's talk about that with pregnant women. Why didn't they study pregnant women with the Moderna vaccine before they recommend it? It's like, here, just take it, and then do the study. I don't get it.
They knew it was bad. And that's why they didn't include them. And they do this fallacy of logic that they try to say that, oh, there's no data showing that they're bad for mothers or babies. So, it's you can't say that. Well, that doesn't mean it's acceptable to administer to them, as if there's no chance that it can't be bad. It's complete fallacy.
It doesn't make any sense. Even someone like me that doesn't have a medical mind, I have a mind of common sense. Before you recommend, recommend a vaccine to a group, you do a trial on them.
Right. That's how it's always been done.
You give it out for 6 months.
That's how it's always been done. And then they say they do this excuse because it's an emergency, so they can go through these loopholes.
Right.
They knew it was bad. But they knew that they can't do the trial because it'll show that it's bad.
Exactly.
So.
But I think we've done an incredible job covering a great array of topics tonight. Not, especially I wanted to, talk about the niacin and the NAC and the other B vitamins, because I think they are very, very vital. Not just with COVID and respiratory infections, but just overall health in general. Yeah. And Dmitry, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for coming on and discussing this today.
Yes, I'm just getting started, but
And once again, I'm putting on the screen your Twitter. You could follow Dmitry on Twitter at NIA3IN.
Yeah, and the protocol should deal with general health maintenance, ensured prophylactic against COVID. Also, try your best not to get the vaccine. Just saying. But if you must have to, if you're forced to, coerced to, the protocol scenario 1, and you can save image as and see high resolution. The scenario 1 will apply to prevent damage, as it will apply to make sure you're protected against COVID. It will literally, the niacins and the NAC mainly will literally kind of counter and clear out whatever their faulty immunotech is. Also to revert damage. Again, always work up with the niacins. Don't start too high necessarily with the flush niacin unless you have an acute active case that you need to address and get out of you. Because it's potent anti-inflammatory. You'll get that crap right out. The whole protocol is I try to put together the keyest elements. Also, I want to selenium and taurine together with niacin is great against lung injury, inflammation. And vitamin C goes, again, you were saying sometimes you do 2 grams. I do 2 grams sometimes.
I do 2 grams every single day.
Yeah, I do 2 gram doses sometimes, and I do at least 2 grams a day.
I do it I do 1 gram twice a day. Yeah.
Now adding that.
By the way, I don't know if do you know who Larry Sanger is? I actually Sanger, yeah. That's the reason why I started, because of him.
Yeah,
he takes 3 grams a day, and he said I haven't been sick in 5 years ever since I went up to 3. So that's why I started doing 2. I may even go to 2.5 at some point and then just leave it, because you don't want to go. I have a history. My family has a history of kidney stones. And I know if you take too much C, you can get kidney stones, unless it's L-absorbic acid, I've been told. Is that true?
Absorbic acid, if you dissolve it in water, I have the powder, it's so much better.
Right. That's exactly what I was told, the powder. Exactly. And I take 1 gram. I take 1 gram of calcium absortate. I won't say the brand, but again, same ant. Recommended that I started taking that about 15 years ago because of Arthur Godfrey promoting it. And Arthur Godfrey went ahead and lived till his late 80s. So
yeah, Linus Pauling was huge in vitamin C, and he was actually at one point kind of enemies, like kind of like Einstein and Bohr were, with where Pauling was vitamin C and Hoffer was flush niacin and niacinamide, but they eventually merged, and they saw the kind of synergistic and addressing and kind of making up for each other, that the vitamin C and flush niacin, they go very well together. Right. And even for every 1 unit of flush niacin, 2 to 3 C, it helps a lot of people. All like the antioxidative powers of vitamin C are known, they're standard knowledge. Again, anything that's water soluble, vitamin, essential nutrient, that an amino acid, that it's not gonna, our bodies don't maintain it. And if we don't supply it dynamically sufficiently, we're at risk of more problems. And this is especially of niacin.
Which is why we need to promote good health overall in this country. That's why we need to change our diets. And unfortunately, what the problem is all you got to do is go watch TV, which I barely do anymore. And you see all these commercials for, fast food, big pharma. It's all the same stuff, just promoting things.
Yeah. The big pharma is the worst. I mean, the big pharma, they know niacin, they know nutrients, the ultimate
Dmitry,
power.
How many commercials do you see on ads saying, talk about lawsuits? If you take, and I'll give you one in particular that I took, because I took it for 1.5 years. Unfortunately, and so far, knock on wood, I have not, I've been okay with Zantac. And I see Zantac commercials all the time about if you took Zantac and developed any one of these cancers, call us, and you could be in a class action lawsuit. It is heartbreaking. It is awful. And by the way,
I mean,
what my theory is you're going to see 5 years from now. Say that one more time. Sorry to interrupt you.
If you think Xantac's bad, these vaccines they're trying to give to everybody in the world, even our children, make Xantac. I'll tell you what, if you think cigarettes are bad, these vaccines they're giving to everyone in the world are like just exponent on the other. There are levels to bad. The cigarettes are angels compared to what these vaccines are.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. So like you don't need synthetic products. It's just a huge racket. It's just another business. They make enough money off the shit, and they tell people they're good. The doctors don't know. They just make money prescribing, and they don't care. They don't know these nutritional mechanisms.
It's corporate talking points. It's corporate talking points.
Yeah, of course. They lobby. They put big tobacco out because big tobacco was actually making a good product. And you'll see.
But let's go further. And then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Someone who's why are they giving a vaccine to someone who already contracted COVID, and the chances of being reinfected are 0.84%?
And also, Cleveland Clinic has demonstrated and massive population-based data.
Saw the study. I saw the study.
That there's no benefit essentially if you had already acute infection, right, and recovered, you won't gain benefit from getting vaccinated. And at the same time, a study before that came out showing that if you had acute infection prior and recovered, you have at least 50% increased risk of moderate to severe adverse effects from getting the vaccine. So literally, it's been essentially proven that and they still want to give it to everyone who's had previous infection recovered, that they won't get any benefit from the vaccine and only have a alarming increased risk of ruining their lives. If you don't take my protocol, of course, but it's anti-science. The talking points on the Democrat news networks saying, I mean, these are people working in genocide. These are Nazi foot soldiers that are from Biopharma, that Biopharma pays off lobbies, and they want everyone to get vaccinated. And if you get enough money to pay enough people off and just say safe, effective, that's what they're doing, and that's how you get away with it. They can't put them into camps or trains anymore, or trains and take them to camps and burn their bodies anymore. This is how they do it now. And also, like with the dementia crisis, they need to get rid of people, and they want to make money in the process because they're going to making a lot of money. These people, these hospital bills, and again, it's like a communism drive where they're trying to get rid of middle class. It's like, not everyone wants to get vaccinated. Okay, we'll do lockdowns now and ruin your life more. But their main goal is to get everyone vaccinated, and I think it's something to do with they're trying to. They want to profit. They want to essentially depopulate us, get rid of. There's something the autoimmune responses of whatever garbage is in there, some kind of meta particles that mess up your iron and iron ferritin balance in cells, and that's they then try to extract energy out of you. I think and then they're putting in you medical systems, insurance companies, huge empires, crime syndicate that then they have kind of a regulation of and use all these people's, that's kind of like a power to them for them to be able to have all your medical records now from on, and it's there's a lot of objectives with this vaccine, and a lot of it's clearly not to stop a pandemic or anything. They weren't interested. They planned it for this, and they weren't interested. When I when I foiled their whole plot with just simply reporting niacin, they had no interest in getting back. If they really wanted to stop the pandemic, they would get niacins into people's mouths rather than jabs into people's arms. And also I'm steps ahead in that if you unfortunately did get jabbed and you want it out and want to recover or prevent injury, the protocol should work. And I'm looking at other additions with detox, like zeolite and like activated charcoal sauna. But I don't think there's anything to worry about because the niacins, the protocol actually modifying and maintaining your health, it's too much power against their faulty immunotech and garbage synthetics. It all comes down to thermodynamics and through the biochemistry of the body here. And that's where that
essentially doing old school science to figure all this out.
Yeah, I mean, I did the mechanisms with niacin are so deep, and they've been censoring, suppressing it, trying to manipulate it, making sure. I mean, I've talked to some elite MDs; they don't even know about niacin. They're like, "How much does that cost?" Or like their patient had to show them on their cell phone what NAC is. So I mean, it's
you know what? I'm glad we're still on. Hold on, I'm glad we're still on because why doesn't a doctor know about nutrition?
They don't teach it. They make sure not teach it. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it until these aren't like thorough, deep scientists here trying to look into. They just make money. I mean, they're good doctors, and a lot of them want to help. They just don't know about niacin. They've never known. They give you a statin and ruin your liver, or they don't go and do they don't go and do they don't go reading 800 studies a day like I do. What?
I mean, don't you think that is the most ridiculous thing that a medical doctor is not taught in medical school about nutrition or proper nutrition?
They used to, and also in like health science, health and epidemiology and stuff. They just teach us the methods, and then all the study examples are biopharmaceutical products. So it's like you wouldn't, and then they give this, nutrients, and like most like outside of like they all work in unison, but like the niacin is the most crucial one, and it's just unsurpassed in just about everything that no biopharmaceutical synthetic agent can compare, because it gets them to the heart of what disease is, and with the thermodynamics involved.
Dmitry,
so yeah, they just don't know, and then the ones who do know, they know that they can't go even tweet niacin because then they'll lose money from patient appointments.
Dmitry, I want to thank you for coming on and talking about this for the last 2 hours. Thank you so much, and I would love to have you come back with an update. I would love to have you come back with an update. I thought this was a great conversation. This was very knowledgeable about not just the B vitamins, but just all of all the vitamins and supplements in general, and promoting good health. And Dmitry, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it as well.
Thank you, and have yourself a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
You too, sir. Bye-bye.
So it was an amazing conversation with Dmitry Kats today. Amazing conversation. There is one more topic that I would like to go into that is not COVID related, that I have to go into because I am a Long Islander. Today is the 25th anniversary of TWA Flight 800 and the crash. It's a moment I'll never forget that as long as I live. I was 15 years old at the time. The date was July 17th, 1996. I remember my mom telling me at around just after 8:30 that she thought she heard a very, very loud bang as she was going to the store. toward the South Shore. Even though I live in Central Long Island, it's very, very possible. And of course, 30 minutes later, we hear saw the news stories about Flight 800. I want to just share real quick. A couple of images from that. Here was the flight path. Here was the flight path of TWA Flight 800 when it took off, and then I think it was between 15 and 20 minutes later, crashed just south of Moriches Inlet and Shinnecock Inlet. I wanted to, as I said, I wanted to just talk about that very, very briefly. And it feels like yesterday when that occurred. But my heart, my prayers, and my condolences go out to all 230 victims as well as their families. And I just wanted to briefly bring that up since today is the 25th anniversary of TWA Flight 800. And I want to thank everyone for watching today and now this evening's podcast, and hope everyone has a great weekend. And the plan is for next week, we're going to have five more post-COVID vaccinated patients injured coming on and sharing their stories, as well as in August. What I'm planning on doing is I'm going to talk about two different meteorological historic events. One, the 2011 Joplin tornado. They just celebrated back in late May the 10th anniversary of that. Very, very heartbreaking. 158 people died that day in Joplin, Missouri. As well as later on, something that is very close to my heart and something I'll never forget is we're approaching the 9-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy, and we're going to have a discussion about that and post Superstorm Sandy. So I hope people, will watch and enjoy that those two discussions. So once again, have yourself a wonderful weekend, and thank you for watching.